the reason we wanted to document it. What they were doing was, in fact, so incredible that we just really thought it should be filmed.
Running, actually, when I got sober, running saved my life. And then running actually gave me a life.
It was unbelievable how that evolution worked, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying, and again, I go all the way back to the train of you running to catch that train. Let's go to the Sahara Desert. Let's transport.
Let's go.
Let's go to the Sahara Desert. So the story you tell is that you're doing a run with somebody, and out of the clear blue, somebody says to you on one of your adventure runs, think I've ever ran across the Sahara Desert? And that's all it took, right?
Yeah, well, to tell you the truth, though, the details in that are, I looked at him, and it was my friend Ray who ultimately ended up running across the Sahara with me. I looked at him when he asked that question. We're in the middle of the Amazon jungle in Brazil doing this race. I looked at him, I'm like, that is the dumbest freaking idea I have ever heard. Who the hell would do that? Like, you can't. It's impossible. Yeah. Like, it's just impossible. You couldn't get resupplied. It's too hot. Nobody could run across, deep sand for thousands of miles.
It's not like there's a highway that goes straight across, right? You're running through sand.
Yeah, and so it's just impossible. But what I figured out is, and we actually all know this, like whether it's a business idea or whatever, when that little grain of sand manages to work its way into your brain, I just couldn't let go of the thought. And so when I did get back home, I researched and I found out that indeed, no one had ever run across the Sahara, for good reason, it turns out. But, and I decided, I did make a decision. I'll never forget sitting there and saying, like out loud to myself, I'm going to be the first person to run across the Sahara Desert. Like, I just made the decision. I took possession of the idea. Now, in full disclosure and transparency, it was so far-fetched that it was kind of fun to say it. I mean, it's almost like saying, I'm going to swim to the moon. Yeah. Or I'm going to be an NFL quarterback. Right, I can say it all I want. Right. But, the reality is different. Of doing it. Right. And people are telling me, I had done enough crazy things up to that point physically that nobody was going to tell me that, they weren't going to say I couldn't do it necessarily, like I couldn't do it, but they did say it's impossible. Yeah. So those are kind of two separate things. Right. They said, if anybody can do it, you can do it, but it's just not possible. And so I really did. I let other people take ownership of the impossibility of it. And I took full possession. Every time I heard someone else tell me this is impossible, I felt my literal heels digging into the sand saying, okay, we'll see. And what I did, and I know you well enough already to know that you do the same thing, in the sense that what I did was keep telling the story. That's what salespeople do. And I didn't see myself as a salesperson, but I just kept telling the story. And I got better at telling the story. And I got more detail about something that hadn't happened yet. Right.
I painted the picture better, much more into focus.
I'm getting comfortable. I'm learning how to get other people excited. And sure enough, a friend of mine, I was working for the TV show Extreme Makeover Home Edition at the time. And I was this producer on the show and a cameraman, and I'm shooting and producing and all this, and this guy that I knew came up and he said, and I really think he did it because he was just sick of hearing me talk about this, but he's like, if you want, I'll introduce you to this director named James Mall. And James Mall had won the Academy Award for Best Director a couple of years earlier. And I'm like, yes, please, thank you.
Thanks for the introduction.
And and it kind of took off from there. I went in to see James Mall, showed up late I did everything wrong. Absolutely everything wrong, except, the the passion that I had for the idea. I showed up 10 minutes late, all sweaty, and I got lost on the back lot at Sony in Los Angeles. And I show up and I just, like, as I like to say, I threw up on his desk. Not really, but just with words. Like, I blurted out everything in a few minutes, and it was the worst pitch I've ever made in my life. But again, it's that lesson of, if your heart is in it, and that person across from you can tell you're not just trying to sell them something. You are so deeply involved, and this is so deeply ingrained in you. You know, by the time that meeting was over, he wanted in. He wanted some of this energy.
Yeah, we don't inspire people by what's in our head. We inspire people by what's in our heart.
And our words, you know, yes, you kind of need to be able to explain it pretty well, which is why I tell people all the time, you know, practice what you're going to say. Don't memorize it. There's a difference between memorizing, and memorizing sounds memorized.
Correct.
You know, practice it and use your charm with people that you're talking to.
I love that. So then you get, if that's not enough, you get Matt Damon involved, which is, I'm saying,
James Mall calls me a week later and he's like, "Hey, so I just hung up with Matt Damon and he wants to executive produce and narrate this film." And he waits a beat, and I love this whole thing. You know, he takes a beat and he's like, "Is that okay with you?" And I literally, I took 5 seconds and I said, "Well, I was really hoping for somebody better, but sure, Matt Damon will be just fine."
Yeah, right.
He still, James loves that story because it's
and this is Matt Damon. This is Jason Bourne 1. This is like pre-Jason Bourne, right? This is 2006. This is Good Will Hunting.
Yes.
Matt Damon. This is like, right? This isn't We Bought a Zoo, Matt Damon.
No, and he's into it, man. We seal the deal. I go to New York, actually, and Matt and I end up going for a 10-mile run together around the city, and it was the first time we'd met, and that was kind of how we decided whether or not we were going to do this. Yeah. And Matt's famous. There's actually a moderately famous line, certainly famous for my life, where Matt actually says the words, you know, there's just simply no way. 10 miles is my max. Like, we were talking about Badwater in Death Valley, and it's 135 miles. He's like, I just could never run that far. And I said, which is what I believe, yes, you could. You know, you could. It's a matter of making your decision. And I said, you just have to change your relationship with pain. And he actually began, began using that line because it is a mindset, right? I mean, that's what we're sitting here talking about is you do, it's cliche in a way, but it's so true. You know, what you believe, it doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I guarantee you, if you don't believe it, it's absolutely not going to happen. Correct. Whatever that thing is that you want.
What's amazing, and I will tell you, there's so much good stuff here and so far in this conversation. But one of the things you said, and you said it 5 minutes ago, and it keeps replaying in my head, is I let other people take possession of the impossible. That, and I held on to the truth. And to me, oh my gosh, that is so deep in so many levels, that we allow other people to let us take possession of the impossible. We let them tell us it's impossible. And all of a sudden, listen, you can think it's impossible, and you take possession of that because I'm going to take possession of the truth of what I truly believe.
I just got chill bumps, and here's the thing. And this is a difficult concept for a lot of people, but misery, the old saying, misery loves company, it's really true. Yeah. And we assume that those people around us want us to be successful and want the best for us.
Correct.
And sure, they do on some level, but there's an interesting thing that happens. Some of the people who were telling me it was impossible to go across the Sahara were actually running friends of mine, or people who were filmmakers, or whatever it might be. And part of what they were telling me was, you need to stay down here with us.
Correct.
You need to stay right here where you are. Yeah. And I can actually take the lesson back even further to my addiction and when I got sober. There were people that I drank with and I partied with. I'm using air quotes for people. That I partied with who came up to me. They're like, "Oh, come on, dude. You don't yeah, you drink too much sometimes, but you don't have a big problem. You just need to calm down. And it took me years to understand that it's not that they had bad intent, but the worst thing that could happen in a way was for me to get sober, get my life together, and then they might actually be forced to look in the mirror and examine their own existence. Yeah. While we're all doing the same time wasting, bullshit, we could just, we were all fine with that. Yeah. But the second one of us, and it just happened to be me, took off. What's funny about that story is there's like 3 guys that I really think of, and all 3 of them are sober today. So they're all people who years later
followed your
actually
lead.
Came to me and said, hey man, I can't do this anymore. What do I do?
Followed your lead and you inspired.
That was the gift. Is I didn't inspire with words. I never went back to them because this doesn't work. Right. Life is about, and I believe this so seriously, attraction rather than promotion. And it's an old tenet of addiction recovery. My initial instinct when I got sober was to go into the bars and pull all my friends out and say, you got to try this. This life is so much better. But all they do is tell me to piss off. Yeah. Because nobody wants that. But what I did instead was just live my life. Attraction rather than promotion. And if I'm living it in a way that eventually looks attractive to them, or maybe it's just that their life looks so crappy to themselves, then sooner or later they want to change. Yeah. Or maybe they don't. Right. But you can't. You can only force people through your own actions, not through your words or trying to make them do it.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. And I'll go back to what you started in the interview when you talked about your amazing mother, that you learn from her actions of how to love every individual, regardless of their race or their gender or their background or whatever. And that's the same. So you were programmed by your mother through her actions, and it carried on to not just how you treat people, but how you operate your entire life. I'm saying, because that's what you just described. You described how your mother raised you.
Yeah. No, it's exactly right. And I mean, look, my mother was maddening, though, as a child, right? Yeah. Because I never could get a straight answer.
Yeah, right.
I'd ask my mom. I mean, here we are. It seems like we're in a perpetual election season, in the United States here. But I always love the very quick story about, 1972. I go to my mother and I ask her, as a 10-year-old, who I should vote for, Nixon or McGovern. Well, obviously I can't vote. Yeah. It's not like I'm really going to go vote, but in school we're voting. Yeah. And she despite my mother being the most liberal person on the planet at that time, she would not infect me with her belief, right? So what she said to me instead was, well, some people believe this and some people believe this, and you're just going to have to make up your own mind.
Love that. How many people right now are infecting their children with their own beliefs about politics and the way the world should be, and how they see different races, and it's amazing. And we'll never get out of this state of racism, or we'll never get out of the way any of it until people start allowing people to have their own. And it's not just parents; it's the media. It's everybody wants to infect you with their bias.
It is infection is such a great word, because that's just like what it is. It's people just need to think for themselves and with their own heart and their own head, and try to use humanity as the core part of the decision-making process. And my mom gave me that gift, and by no means am I perfect. Right. I still have biases, because it's impossible to escape innate bias right. in whether it's a situation or just as a human being, right? But still, she did give me that gift to at least think for myself. And there's plenty of people who would it's not like I haven't wronged people in my life or done shitty things to people or whatever. I am human. And but I hope that I do a better job today of cleaning up my messes. I guess that's the way I always put it, is I still screw up regularly, but I'm faster with the broom and the
And the
and the
dustpan.
dustpan.
Love that. So, all right. So let's fast forward. So, you take on this challenge of the Sahara Desert, and I don't want to go through the whole race. I want people to read the book,
Yeah.
right? But you take on the race of the Sahara Desert. You get done running across the Sahara Desert, reaching your milestones. Life is perfect now. You conquer this. You conquer this. Then you set on another race to run across the United States. And then just as life happens to work, when everything is going perfect, you got two sons now, I think, at that point, right?
Yeah.
2 sons at that point. Yeah. A happy relationship, a great relationship, and boom.
I win the Powerball. Oh, no, wait. No, I'm sorry. That's not me.
Wait, that wasn't in the
Hang
book.
on,
I didn't read that right.
That's
right.
I forget sometimes. It's not my story.
Because just when you get your life together, just when you've now reached the top of the mountain, as I talk about all the time, the top of one mountain is only the bottom of the next.
I was my second film, Running America, about the run across the U.S., came out in Greensboro, North Carolina, and it was a packed house, 300 people in the theater that night. It's May 19th of 2010, and it's just like you said, I'm giving speaking gigs everywhere. I've got an agent in New York.
You're on the Leno show.
I'm on the Leno show.
Yeah,
I got all these things going on, you know?
People always love, I'm saying, listen, you're at the top of the mountain.
Yeah. And so I've got, just as I always say too, especially in Greensboro, North Carolina, it is the epitome of, big fish in a little pond. And I've been on the news a lot and all of that. And so, running the Sahara especially had been this thing that put me on the map, so to speak. And that turned out to be both a good and bad thing. So the day after that premiere of Running America, I go back to my apartment. I've been out running errands. I get out of my car and I notice this movement off to my right, and 6 armed IRS agents come storming out of a coffee shop, and they're running towards me. I'm literally looking over my shoulder to see who they're after, and it's me. And they handcuff me and throw me in the back of the car, and I get taken to jail. And I sit there all night, and obviously there's a lot more details to this, but I sit there all night really not knowing what's going on. And the next day I'm handed an indictment, and it's legalese, and I don't understand anything I'm looking at, and I'm totally freaked out. But ultimately I come to understand that I'm being charged basically as pretty much as the only borrower, the only person in the United States that's being charged with allegedly overstating my income on a home loan application.
Right. In 2000, and this is the height of the housing crisis.
So this is 2010, but this loan was from 2005. So this was in the heart of the, if you had a pulse, you could get a loan era.
Oh.
And
I was one of those people.
Yeah.
My wife had just started her own company. She didn't have an income. She didn't have stated income for 2 years or whatever it was for starting your own company. And we did a countrywide no-doc loan. Yeah. I never went to jail.
Yeah. Well, that's what I had. And I knew tons of people who owned 5 houses or 10 houses. Or, again, it was a free-for-all. And obviously we don't have time nor the interest to go into all the intricacies. Yeah. But what happened to me was illuminating in the sense that I fit the mold perfectly. In that case, the people who were after me picked a great target because I didn't have any money. It's not that I wasn't making money, but I wasn't. You don't become an ultra runner. You don't
right.
even going and doing some speaking gigs and all of that, with the exception of the very top end of the speaking industry. It's not like you're making millions of dollars. So
correct.
So I was making a good living and I was happy, but I was the perfect target because I didn't have money to defend myself, basically, and I had enough notoriety that if they could get a conviction, they would get a lot of coverage. Mm-hmm. And it was a crazy lesson, man. Literally, I went from, talk about the old saying, hero to zero. Quite literally, the day after my arrest, I am convicted in the public eye. I'm kicked off of my 2 charity boards. I mean, after the Sahara, I had helped to start what today is the biggest water nonprofit in the world. And I mean, so I shouldn't say kicked off, even though that's the reality. Right. I was asked to step down.
Very politely asked to step down.
Right. And
for a short period of time until this all works out.
Until this all blows over.
Right.
And, endorsements, I had a few sponsors that were paying me. I mean, so literally all that went away overnight. And I've got a court date, months from, 3 months down the road. And again, the long version of the story is actually, it's in the book. And even in the book, I don't make it too terribly long. So don't be afraid to read it. But the fact of the matter is, I went to trial and I was convicted, I was actually found not guilty, ironically, of providing false information. And I was convicted of mail fraud because I signed a closing package that had false information in it. And by signing that package, whether I put the information there or not, I basically was attesting to what was in there. And I put it in the mail. And so that became mail fraud. I love the
judiciary system.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And so, here's the thing, and this is I think what you're more interested in, and I think what people would be more interested in is I was the most prepared person in history to go to prison. Yeah. Which sounds funny.
Because your whole life was
years of addiction, and then years of recovery, and years of going out there and doing really hard events, not just running, but adventure racing and other things. I did RAM, race across America bike race. I did all these things that basically taught me the same lesson over and over. The hardest things that I faced were always the things that I got the best lessons out of.
Right.
So I tried to take that. Now, prison is another story. I tried to take that, overlay it on this current situation of mine, and come to terms with what had happened, because I knew instinctively I had a choice. I could stay stuck in whether this was fair or unfair, right. Just or unjust. I knew it wasn't fair. I mean, that was my view of it for sure. And and it hurt. Of course, I had enough haters out there, because if you become a public figure, you will attract people who by default want you to fail. Okay. And will say it very vocally.
Shout it from the mountaintop.
Absolutely. So, Running the Sahara is an interesting movie, and it depicts me as both sort of the hero and the villain. Yeah. So those people who didn't like me because of that movie, who never met me, right. But they didn't like me, it was, see, I told you that guy was an asshole, right. And it
every
he got what he deserved. They didn't care what the facts were. So anyway, the point of all that is just to say, I was found guilty. I was sentenced to 21 months in federal prison. And Valentine's Day of 2011, I reported to Beckley Federal Correctional Institute in Beckley, West Virginia. Yeah. And that's where I spent the next year and a half.
And again, it's in the book, but what's amazing about it, to me, what I get, again, I wasn't in prison with you, but what I got out of it was, if ever there was a time to start using it again, if ever there was a time to say, the hell with this, I can't catch a break, to play the victim, to literally, you had every right at that point to turn from victor to victim. And it would have been accepted. It would have been maybe not accepted, but understood.
Yeah.
But
I'd have gotten a pass. I mean, everybody, even the people, they would have said, "Oh man, it's understandable that he
relapsed."
And to tell you that I didn't think about it really hard. Yeah. I had knee surgery, not long before I went into prison, because I decided that I knew I needed to be able to run in prison, and I've been having a problem with one of my knees, a torn meniscus, and so I got it fixed. The people at the pharmacy, they didn't know me. They didn't know I'm recovering. So of course I got handed a giant bottle of whatever, Percocet, Oxycontin, whatever, one of those. Oxy something, right? And and I knew that I could have just spent the next couple of weeks or month before I had to report to prison. I could have just spent it wasted. And to say I didn't think about it would be totally disingenuous. And I certainly thought about it. And I do describe this story. There was a moment where probably my hardest and closest incident during that time, and my phone rang, and my mother actually called me, and she was in the midst of a really bad, Alzheimer's episode, and it was so sad and awful, and and it is like I'm not a religious guy, I've got plenty of spirituality, and I have my own set of beliefs, but I, whatever higher power was out there made my phone ring at that moment, and it was my mom, and it was the reality that I
gotta keep doing this.
Yeah, I could lose everything, and not even just that. Okay, we tend to go towards, what am I going to lose if I do this? And they tend to be things. And what I would have lost would have been, everything internal that I had worked so hard to build. And, the life I had built wasn't destroyed. And this is, I think, I knew instinctively, even as I was found guilty and sentenced to prison, I knew once I got over my very brief, pity party, I knew that my happiness was still entirely up to me. 100%. No one else could make me unhappy, not even in prison. And so I could either go in there bitter and angry at the people who did this to me.
Man.
Right. The people who did this to me, and I could put their pictures on the, bulletin board and throw darts, but all that was going to do was hurt me. And I had learned that through a lot of years of addiction recovery. And so I took that attitude into prison, and I made the best of the situation.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I know I've taken up a ton of your time. This is, I could literally, and I'm so glad that I happened on that article on Running Digest, Runner's Digest, because I am absolutely the better person for having met you, and this experience is absolutely a Cannonball moment for me, because I got so much out of this. So I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I do want to ask a couple ending questions. So right now, there is somebody that's listening to this, and you alluded to it earlier, that somebody knows an addict, somebody's been an addict, somebody's been touched by addiction. Right now, there's somebody listening to this, I assure you, that's fighting a battle. Maybe it's drugs, maybe it's alcohol. I see all the time, I referenced this the other day, that there's a police station about 5 miles from here. I drive by it almost every day. And it says, it has this big sign outside, and it says 2018, 216 overdoses, 64 lives lost. And I look at it and I'm captivated by this, of how many people are struggling a battle right now. What's the advice? What's the Charlie Engle advice? Again, you gave so much of it here, but how do they find it within themselves to come to grips with that, or to overcome that? I've never been an addict, so I speak from ignorance when I say this, but to me, it's got to, at some point, you gotta feel this is it. I just can't do this anymore. What do you tell that person?
I mean, you hit it on the head right there, and I mean, unfortunately, part of the reason so many people are dying is that young people are doing drugs like fentanyl and heroin at an age that used to be, even when I was doing my cocaine, the thought of putting a needle in my arm wasn't there. And it's not to say that I wouldn't have gotten there someday. Yeah. But today, teenagers in high school don't think twice about trying drugs like heroin, and fentanyl is laced into everything these days because it's a synthetic drug that is killing people. So, not necessarily answering your question there, but it's a different landscape now. And the problem is, people who are not addicts, they're very often first-time users, or they're new to the drug, into that scene, are dying. Yeah. So, unfortunately, I've never been an abstinence person, because abstinence doesn't work. Doesn't work for sex, doesn't work for drugs.
Right.
You know, you can try to tell people how to potentially be responsible in their behavior,
Yeah.
even while doing something inherently irresponsible.
Yeah.
But you can't stop them from doing it or trying it. So the first thing I say is, number one, recognize there is help. There's always help. And sobriety is about fellowship and camaraderie, not religion, not, no matter what you heard of AA or NA or those kind of things. It's not a freaking cult. It is what you want it to be. It's what you make of it. It's truly what you make of it. But you have to ask for help. You know, the police can make you go to, the courts can make you go to treatment, your parents can make you go to treatment, your boss can make you go to treatment. But until you reach a point where you want to go to treatment because you actually want to not only stay alive, but actually live a life worth living.
Yeah.
But the resources are incredible. And the only one I can speak to for absolute certain right here for anybody listening is my website is charlieengle.com. And it's not a promotional website for recovery. I'm just saying that my phone number and my email is on that website. And any person out there can reach out to me and say, I'm struggling. What should I do? And look, I don't give advice. I mean, hopefully nothing that I've said today even comes close to sounding like advice. The only thing I can give, I can tell people how I did it. I can't say how they're going to do it.
Yeah.
But I think the point is there is hope. And the biggest danger we all have in the most dangerous parts of our lives is being hopeless and feeling like nobody cares and there's no answer out there. And there is an answer.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest things, I've gotten so much out of this, unbelievable. And the idea that, and you said earlier, you realized at some point that nobody was going to save you except for you. I think that's so profound when you understand that we're looking for saviors. We're looking for people. There's a ton of people that want to see you succeed or want to help you, want to be there for you, and will be there for you. But until you understand that it's your choice, and this is not just with addiction, this is with success in life, this is with your business, this is with anything. It really is. You have to take the step to say, it's on me. It's on me. There's a great podcast I listened to, a guy named Tom Blue, and he said, everything changed in my life the moment I realized that everything in my life is my fault. Everything.
Yeah.
Everything
in your control.
Right, because it's in my control.
And I think with addicts too, it's not people want to assign blame and fault, and an addict feels so guilty, and it keeps them sick and it gets them killed.
Correct.
And it's not about whose friggin' fault it is. Who gives a shit? Right. It's about sucking it up at some point and saying, you know what, I don't want to live like this anymore. Yeah. No matter even if whoever it is pissing in your ear telling you you're a piece of crap because of the way you live, screw all that. Put that aside, let that go, and find somebody that actually wants to be on your team. That's awesome. Surround yourself with the people who actually want you to get better. And it works. Yes. I mean, I am an example of there's absolutely no way that I ever should have survived my addiction. Yeah. And I would never go back because it's just not, there's nothing that could happen in my life. And believe me, I've imagined the worst things that could possibly happen, stuff around my kids or whatever. And none of that stuff would ever, to go drink and drug again, not only would it make it worse, it would dishonor any difficult thing that has happened to me. And I now get to be fully present for all the good things and bad things in my life. And continuous forward movement, just like you're going to do an ultra in the near future. And I'm saying this out loud. I'm putting you on the spot right now. Yeah. So you're going to do that. Yeah. And all that's going to matter in that event, at some point, you are going to so regret your decision of being out there. But you're gonna know that what matters is just simply continuing to move forward, and things get better.
So profound. All right, so so obviously you gave your website, but where do people find you? I'm saying where. It's easy. If you Google you, you're gonna find you everywhere. But if you're listening, you're a business owner, you got to have this guy come speak to your company. You're speaking at Worlds, which we just talked about, which is an unbelievable convention. You book Running Man. Where else? I'm saying, how do people?
The place to start really is the website. It's just charlieengle.com, and then all my social media handles are all Charlie Engle. So whether it's Twitter, Instagram, I seem to be fixated on Instagram these days. So that's where most of my posting is. Yeah. But you'll find me in all those places. And again, I speak all over the place for companies, for schools, nonprofits. It all depends on the situation. So I'd love for people to reach out, and
we'll put all your information in the comment section of all of our postings, social media, when this goes live. So you'll just look below whatever you're on now, the podcast app, and we'll have all your information there. They can just click it.
Perfect. And for people and the book's for sale on there too, if you're interested in the book. A lot of runners these days are reading the audio or listening to the audio book because it's something to.
Oh, I listened to it while I was running.
Oh, yeah.
I literally listened to it.
You were stuck listening to my voice for 11 hours.
I'm telling you what, it was awesome. I was running, true story, so I was running one morning. It was 5:30 in the morning. I was going on, I don't know, an 8 or 9 mile run. And I got to the part where you were getting ready to get to the finish of the Sahara. But you were waiting for...
Oh, yeah.
You were waiting for your buddies, right? And I'm like, I found myself running faster because I was getting so excited. I'm like, and then I looked down and my heart rate's at like 170. I'm like,
you're welcome.
I gotta slow down. Welcome. I'm gonna die. I'm not gonna make another step. So yeah, I listened to it when I was running. It's phenomenal. So all right, so they find you there. Last question.
And I wanted to tell you. You had asked me earlier, so I'm launching this new thing. I'm not going to go into any detail. Is that what you're going to ask? So, okay, sorry, I jumped in.
No,
my bad.
Go.
But this new concept that I've been working on for a couple of years now called Surviving Anything.
Yeah.
And doesn't take a genius to figure out what it's going to be about. So, but the point is not necessarily survive. It is about surviving a run, yes, but it's about surviving addiction. Hell, it's about surviving recovery.
Yeah.
Again, people assume that just because you launch and have a successful business, or you all of a sudden get sober after years of addiction, that life is just freaking awesome. And it doesn't work that way. It's your hard work personally, and the people that you choose to include in your life, and the places that you find love and confirmation. Those are the things that make the difference. And so Surviving Anything is going to be a program of sorts, guidelines, I guess, that will hopefully offer some insight into some tools that might help people get through the hard times and the good times.
It's going to be so good. I can't wait.
Thank you.
I'm like excited. Like, I'm a big podcast guy, obviously a big reading, big growth guy. But when you were telling me about that this morning, I'm like, oh, that shit's going to be awesome. I can't
Thank you. I can't wait to.
All right. So that my last question here. So whenever it may be, when you have left this earth, 50, 60, 40, 90 years from now, whenever it may be, when you look back, what do you want your greatest contribution to be on this earth? What is it that you want to be remembered for? I'm saying I've known you for a short period of time, but I can tell you've already had a dramatic impact on my life. What is that thing that contribution that you really want to be known for?
Man, that's a great question and a tough one. And what pops into my head is this simple saying that I love, so much, which is just, very simply put, it just doesn't matter what happens to us. It only matters what we do about it.
Love that.
And it's not a hard concept, but it's a difficult thing to put into practice, because good and bad stuff happens to every single person, everybody. And people love to say things happen for a reason, and pardon me for saying it, but I don't believe that shit. Things just happen, and whatever the reason is, whatever label we want to put on it, eventually is only determined after we figure out what we're going to do with it. Tragedy, all the things that happen to us in our lives, we have to use it as fuel. And so what I hope people remember about me is, maybe it's as simple as, somebody says, that guy knew how to get through some hard shit.
Yeah. damn sure did. That's
what I
sure.
haven't figured out yet, my wife, I'll leave you with this thought. I got a lot of work to do. My wife looked at me not that long ago and she's like, okay, you got this. You got this down pat. Like if there's a battle going on or if some things are going wrong, I want you in my corner.
Yeah.
Like you're the guy that we want. But do you have any clue how to just be happy when things are just normal?
Yeah. My new challenge is, can you be normal?
Yeah.
Can you function in normal?
And that is a challenge for me, and it's something I work on every day. It's just being okay when things are just okay, and not actually seeking out the chaos and the drama to deal with. That's awesome. And so the beauty of it is there's always something new to work on. Yeah. And running, as you said, we'll go back to the beginning. Running, and you said this to me actually before the podcast. I loved what you said. Running, meditation.
Yeah, moving meditation.
I'm not a good sitting meditator, but I'm a really, really good running meditator, and that's the place that I go to be with myself and to figure this stuff out.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, listen. So I'm going to give some books away too, some Running Man books. So comment on this podcast. Share it, like it, do whatever, 5-star, whatever you have to do. Say you want a book, we'll give a couple books away to people comment on them. We'll get your autograph on them. It's going to be awesome. If you haven't read Running Man, I'm telling you, put it at the top of your book list, put it at the top of your Kindle chart, whatever you have to do, read it, because it is. Don't let the title fool you. It's not a how-tos on running. It's a how-tos on living. So it's
drop
awesome.
me an email and I'll call you and I'll read the prologue to you.
Now that's it. Boom.
Audio book.
Awesome. All right, Charlie. Thanks very much for coming out. I appreciate it,
buddy.
brother.
Thank you.